up. We have a normal engine start. We're ready to taxi.
Now Delta Airlines is taking off for Atlanta 4 times every day. And all 4 flights go non-stop. You can leave in the morning, midday, afternoon, or night. Fly straight through or make Delta-to-Delta connections to major cities throughout the Southeast, too. Next trip to Atlanta, take off on a Delta nonstop and have a great flight. Delta is ready when you are.
This is KTVI, Channel 2 St. Louis. From News Center 2, this is the Weekend Report with Don Johnson, Brian Busby Weather, and Greg Gazinski Sports.
Good evening. Molly McKitterick has the night off. The Supreme Court ruled last week that police cannot enter a suspect's home without first obtaining an arrest warrant. Today, that ruling received its first test in the St. Louis area. After allegedly robbing a national food store, James and Willie Hutchinson took refuge in this house owned by one of the brothers. Police wanted to arrest the two but had to wait outside until a relative could be found to unlock the front door. That took time, and it wasn't until an hour later that the Hutchinsons were finally taken into custody. One of the brothers had to be hospitalized with head wounds, but he is now resting comfortably, according to a hospital spokesman. A police officer in St. Peters, Missouri, is alive tonight only because he was wearing a protective vest, one which stopped a bullet fired from a gun of a prowler early this morning. 24-year-old patrolman George Mussman is hospitalized in good condition. He was shot while checking a car parked near an industrial complex. Police say the driver surprised Mussman, fired one shot, and sped off. The suspect is still being sought by police tonight. As a crowd of several hundred gays and lesbians marched through the streets of St. Louis today, one participant called it history in the making and predicted the St. Louis gay community will now be heard from on a regular basis. Today's march was held to celebrate lesbian and gay pride here. Although this is a regular occurrence in many cities, it was a first for St. Louis. The crowd departed from Maryland Plaza in the Central West End shortly after noon and began the long walk to Washington University for a brief rally. Many were carrying helium balloons and signs, proud to be a part of the city's first ever gay march.
Some it was quite a decision for them to make because they were very much in fear of their jobs because of basically discrimination here in the St. Louis, well, not just St. Louis, but in the country because of their sexual orientation, which is really not sure why that is, but unfortunately it's a fact. And hopefully by this way we're trying to show that, lesbians and gays are just like anybody else. We really didn't have any idea how many people were going to get out here today. There was a nose count. We had just under 500 people, and which was just a guess of how many we were going to have, and we really weren't expecting that many. We're really super happy that we had that many.
With police blocking traffic along the parade route, the large crowd slowly wound its way to the steps of Washington U for a rally featuring speakers and a round of cheers for what had been accomplished. Today's march and rally are the culmination of Gay Pride Week in St. Louis. Organizers hope to raise several $1,000s through donations to finance various activities planned for later this year. The March of Dimes is going to receive thousands of dollars thanks to another massive walkathon in St. Louis today. Many area youngsters spent their morning participating in what was billed as Super Walk 80, an event designed to raise money for the March of Dimes crusade against birth defects. Teenagers from all over the city and county wound their way through city streets, collecting a certain amount of money from sponsors for each kilometer walked. Sponsors say today's weather helped bring out a good turnout, with most everybody seeming to enjoy themselves despite the 35-kilometer route. Because of fundraisers like this, last year area hospitals received $400,000 from the March of Dimes for research. And a couple of thousand members of the St. Louis Jewish community took part in a march today called the Walk with Israel. The 6-mile walk commemorates the 32nd anniversary of Israel's Independence Day. Many of the walkers collected pledges with the proceeds to go to resettlement and social service efforts in Israel. But organizers say the main purpose of the walk is to show the commitment of the local Jewish community to Israel.
In the Middle East are quite critical. I think our demonstration of that support and the support for the State of Israel is vital at this point in time. We would hope that our representatives in Congress and the Senate will be supportive of the causes of Israel. We think Israel is an important ally to the United States, and in the troubled Middle East, it is probably the most dependable ally our country could have.
Ninger says he expects the walk with Israel to become an annual event. The nation of Israel was celebrated around the world today as past injustices were remembered. Here's a report.
The Warsaw Ghetto during the Second World War. The people being herded from one place in the camp to another are Polish Jews. The uniforms belong to the Nazis. This film has only recently been released and has never before been shown on American television. It shows children under arrest as well as the coffins of those who died while being held by the Nazis. Today, 35 years later, a commemoration in the same country to mark the freeing of all Jews from the Nazi concentration camps. The Jews came to this concentration camp by the thousands. They lined the main route through the center of the camp, more than 20 deep. Some had been here before. While Polish Jews were remembering the Holocaust, in Israel, Prime Minister Begin laid a wreath for those Israelis who had died fighting their war of independence for the Jewish state. Almost 14,000 war dead in all. A guard of honor fired the traditional salute. Tonight, the crying will stop and the singing will begin as Israel starts its celebration of the 32nd birthday of independence. Throughout the celebration, though, will be the reminder that those 32 years of freedom have had their price. Richard Anderson, ABC News.
The former Shah of Iran apparently enjoyed a cozier relationship with Israel than most of the world knew about. A former top Israeli diplomat, Yuri Librani, writes that Prime Minister Menachem Begin made a secret visit to Tehran before the Shah was overthrown. And a Tel Aviv newspaper, Librani says, other Israeli officials also visited the Shah secretly to ensure the supply of Iranian oil where Israel would continue. ABC News is reporting tonight that some kind of deal has been struck to allow Barbara Tem to see her son held captive by Iranian militants. At first, the request to see Marine Sergeant Kevin Himmering was denied, but reportedly Mrs. Tem broke into tears, and the militants decided to reconsider. After a lengthy discussion, the militants agreed to allow Mrs. Tem to visit Himmering if she got written permission from the Iranian government. It came immediately. At the moment, no precise time has been set for the visit, and, says the ABC report, there's still to be decided as whether to allow Himmering stepfather to go along. The Soviet Union is redeploying some of its 80,000 invasion troops in Afghanistan. That, according to a spokesman for the umbrella group of Afghan rebel organizations. Reports say Russian forces are being shifted from areas near the Pakistani border to positions closer to the Iranian border, apparently to take full advantage of mounting chaos in that country. While Ted Kennedy worries about Pennsylvania, his nephew campaigns in St. Louis. Those stories later. Brian Busby with the weather and a pat on the back to Channel 2 when we return.
Okay, who's going with us?
Not me.
Too tired.
Sorry.
Bye.
Gee, I really wish I could, but I can't.
Bye.
See you later.
Well, I guess it's just us. Well, let's us get going.
We're going somewhere special. We're going somewhere special. We like Perkins.
Oh, so many margarines.
But chiffon tastes good enough to fool Mother Nature. Tastes so sweet and creamy, so much like butter. All you'll ever want is more chiffon. You'll see.
Tastes like butter.
So many margarines.
But chiffon's good enough to fool Mother Nature.
If it tastes like butter, but it's not, it's chiffon.
Sticks Fair and Fuller's anniversary sale and values is even more than our biggest store-wide event of the season. Sticks Anniversary Sale, going on now.
I came to Midas to get Midasized, and I got the shock of my life. The right shock for my car, absolutely free.
Until April 30th, when you buy 3 of our LifeGuard or SuperGuard or SpringGuard shocks, whichever's right for your car, we'll give you the 4th shock absolutely free.
And if anything ever goes wrong, Midas guarantees to replace their shocks free for as long as you own your car.
So get Midas-ized before April 30th and get the shock of your life.
Absolutely free.
Missouri Governor Joe Teasdale and Senator Edward Kennedy's nephew were campaigning in St. Louis today, and News Center 2's Elliot Davis was there with both of them.
I hope you will continue just to give me your support and your prayers for me as governor, because I really need them very much.
Governor Joe Teasdale came to St. Louis to drum up support for his re-election bid. Teasdale spoke to the 7,500-member Service Employees Union, trying to convince them to re-elect him governor. Teasdale complained about the state's economy. He told the crowd rising gas prices is one of the biggest problems facing Missouri residents, and says the federal government and OPEC ought to blame for some of those higher prices. He says he tried to bring them down, but claims federal regulations are tying his hands. The governor also took a swipe at big business. He says their lust for profit is hurting the poor, and says if he's reelected, he'll try to bring those profits down.
I feel proud that the utility companies and insurance companies are fighting my reelection with all their money and all their heart. So I must have done something right.
But Teasdale isn't the only one campaigning in St. Louis. Senator Kennedy's nephew, Joe Kennedy, came to town to push his uncle's presidential campaign. Kennedy is trying to convince Northside voters to support the senator in Tuesday's Democratic caucuses here. Kennedy campaigned at Lane Tabernacle Church in North St. Louis. A fairly large crowd turned out to see him and greeted him warmly. Kennedy's next stop was a meeting with campaign workers in West County. This is the last Kennedy those workers will see before the caucuses, and he wanted to fire up his team one last time. Joe Kennedy hopes the senator will win Missouri, but admits that will be hard to do.
I'm afraid we haven't had an opportunity to establish a real dialogue in this state. But anybody who thinks about the economic policies of the Carter administration, I would hope, would vote for Ted Kennedy.
Kennedy says he and his relatives have done all they can to convince voters to support the senator, and now he says it's up to them. Elliot Davis, News Center 2, St. Louis.
In a published interview, Illinois Congressman John Anderson says he would be more comfortable with Edward Kennedy in the White House than with Ronald Reagan. Anderson, of course, is a Republican candidate for the presidency, as is Reagan. Kennedy is a Democrat. In the interview with Playboy magazine, Anderson also accuses President Carter of using the world situation politically. Anderson made the comments during the Maine and New Hampshire primaries. And while Anderson may prefer Kennedy over Reagan, whether or not the Massachusetts senator gets a shot at the White House in November could very well hinge on the upcoming Pennsylvania primary, as Lynn Scher reports.
In some ways, national politics all began in Pennsylvania, here where they held the first real political convention, where they decided on the first president, and where they displayed the first flag. But this year it could all end in Pennsylvania for Republican candidate George Bush. He says he's going to win, and he's spending nearly $1 million trying. With polls showing Ronald Reagan far in the lead, the Bush campaign calls it a two-step process. First, they say voters must abandon Reagan.
And then when they break away from that, it is a break. And then they, as I say, rest a little while and think about it, and then come on over to George Bush.
But Reagan isn't giving anyone a chance to think about switching. He plans 2 extra days here to hold on to his lead, especially to those voters who ignored him 4 years ago, the moderates, even though one of the only ones to support him publicly so far is his former running mate.
Well, this time we had the Republican establishment. Last time I was a sole Northeastern strategy. You're looking at him.
Reagan is also making a special pitch to working class voters, the people of both parties who went for George Wallace in 1972. Ronald Reagan isn't the only candidate courting Pennsylvania's ethnic blue-collar support. That is one of the keys to this year's Pennsylvania primary, particularly for the Democrats. And as all the major candidates know, there's no better place in Philadelphia to shop for those votes than at this Italian market. That's what President Carter's #1 surrogate was doing here, in the face of polls showing a loss of support for the president in Philadelphia.
We have the same problems here in Philadelphia that we have all over the country. We have high unemployment, inflation is eating away the dollar, we have all the social problems that anyone else has in any major city, and that has to rest with the president.
And it's not just Philadelphia. While Mr. Carter's expected to do better in the western part of the state, there's growing dissatisfaction with his policies among workers at the steel mills in the Pittsburgh area. Those are precisely the people Senator Kennedy is courting.
Look at the record of the United States Senate for 17 years. Day in, day out, I've been there for the workers.
Kennedy could win in Pennsylvania, a victory he desperately needs to start narrowing the delegate gap. And according to some of his supporters, if Kennedy doesn't win the nomination, then a large number of blue-collar Democrats could cross party lines in November and vote for Ronald Reagan. One union leader says it's not necessarily because they think Reagan speaks for them.
No, they're just going to vote against Carter. Reagan don't represent anybody, in my opinion. It's just that they're just sick of President Carter's policies. He has done nothing for anybody.
The American Bar Association may soon be replacing its 10-year-old professional ethics for attorneys. The president-elect of the association, William Reese Smith, said the new code differs from the old one in two major ways. A lawyer can now disclose a client's confidence if the client's conduct threatens death or serious harm to another person. It also changes the amount of free public service lawyers must give. The new code has not been approved by the ABA. But I know of something that has been approved by everybody in St. Louis, at least, and that's the weather for the last 2 days, and I want to know if there's more in the offing.
There's much more. Probably Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday look like they're all going to be much of the same. It's awfully mild all across the country, as a matter of fact. Records are just being broken all over creation. Right now, though, it looks like in Missouri as well, there were 2 records also broken. Kansas City got up to 91 degrees, breaking their old record set way back in 1902 of 90 degrees. St. Joe's got up to 88 today, breaking a record of 87 that is, set back in 1936. Right now, temperatures are quite mild around the region. We got up into the lower 80s in the metro region. They're still quite mild around most parts of the bi-state region. The warmest was reported firsthand by Paul Peeney out at U City. The heat island effect looks like it's taking over. That's 70 degrees, and the coolest down at Antonia with 59. And the reason for all this pleasant weather continues to be this big high-pressure cell sitting over the Gulf states, continuing to pump up very warm southerly winds all over the country, the south as well as the plains. As a matter of fact, as I said a little earlier, records were being set as far north as International Falls, Minnesota, and as far west as Montana. The high really won't be moving that far over the next 48 hours, so it looks like this kind of weather will be continuing for the St. Louis area. There's another front across the map. This is going to stay well to our north. Most of the rain showers will be along the Appalachians and also in the Great Lakes, with some also in New England. There's also another system just now organizing itself over the Pacific Northwest. Light showers occurring in central California and going up the coast. This is going to take a while to get here. I don't think that we'll have any threat of showers before Thursday as it looks now. So much more mild weather and sunny weather is in store for the next 2 or 3 days. Right now, though, at Lambert Field, still quite mild, 68 degrees, humidity 55%. The barometer holding steady at 30.02 inches. The winds are westerly, quite light at 7 miles an hour. Our sky remains clear. The high 82 officially at Lambert Field after an overnight low of 54 degrees. On our satellite picture, here's that storm which continued to bring showers over the southeastern part of the United States. Finally moving out. It looks like they'll be able to dry out a bit. But look at all the clear skies right in here. This is associated with those southerly winds coming across the high pressure cell. Here's the front that's going to stay to our north. We still have some clouds in the St. Louis sky, but they won't be producing rain at all. But here's the next threat of rain that I was talking about over the Pacific Northwest. Again, it's going to take quite a while for it to get to us. I'm looking for Wednesday or Thursday right now. Our forecast weather map for the same time tomorrow evening still has a high over Louisiana, pumping up the warm, moist air from the south. The front staying to our north, quite dry. Then the other system working its way through the Rockies and probably through the plains. Showers will be coming in increasingly cloudy skies by Wednesday or Thursday. But with the high still in command, these winds are going to continue off the Gulf, meaning much warmer weather. As a matter of fact, across the country, it looks like 90s are going to be the rule. Let's look at our forecast temperatures map for the entire country. Here's the wedge of 90s working their way in the plains, but for the bi-state region, it looks like 80s, and I do mean mid-80s at that. So it looks like we're going to be right around 85 degrees for the next few days, which is well above normal. The forecast for tonight, though, looks like mild temperatures will be the rule, 50 to 55 degrees tonight on light southwesterly winds. The forecast for tomorrow, mostly sunny, continued warm, the high in the middle 80s. The forecast for Monday night, clear skies, mild, the overnight low 54 to 58 degrees. And then for Tuesday, mostly sunny, breezy, unseasonably warm, the high near 55 to 58 degrees. So it looks like, again, we're going to be well above normal for the first part of the week.
No snow.
No snow.
Thank you, Brian. There comes a time when even the best of television stations must pat itself on the back. Well, that's what we're going to do right now. In Clayton today, the St. Louis chapter of the American Diabetes Association held its annual meeting, and KTVI received a Public Service Award for its programming on diabetics. Ralph Hansen, Channel 2's general manager, accepted the award on behalf of the KTVI staff.
While I am thanking you for this very attractive plaque, and I will present it to the staff tomorrow, I also want to thank you for the contribution that you make to the community as a whole through this organization. And I'm just very pleased and proud that all of us at KTVI, in a sense, share that volunteer position with you. Thank you.
And that wizard of sports, Greg Gazinski, will have sports highlights, and a poetic voice from the 70s comes to St. Louis. Those are only a few of the stories we'll have after this.
For years, I've been a really good driver. Then I had one little accident, and my insurance rates went through the roof.
You need Pennywise protection.
With J.C. Penney Insurance, if you drive 3 straight years with us without an accident, and then you have one, we won't raise your rates. That's Pennywise protection. So come in or call J.C. Penney Insurance. We don't think just one accident should raise your rates.
Pennywise protection.
It's insurance for the smart shopper.
Know what you need for spring, and we've got it at Essen's Green Up and Clean Up sale. HWI fertilizer and HWI weed and feed are both on sale, only $3.97 each. Save on the big 40-pound bags of peat and topsoil, now only $1.44 each. And check out Essen's wide selection of Toro and Lawn Boy mowers. You'll find some great Essen values. Think spring. Save now at Essen's Green Up and Clean Up sale.
Creve Coeur, St. Anne, and Chesterfield. Woods Mill at Clayton.
It's two, working just like one.
At National Car, we're 12,000 people who know what it means to be a team.
That's how teamwork gets it done. It's wanting to do more, 'cause it's not just you you're working for. It's having people count on you and pleasing them by coming through. It's working together with national pride. We're the big green team. We're on your side.
Hi, Captain Video here. You know, the economy is in pretty bad shape, but right now is the best time to build or add to your home video system. Prices are up and not down. And being entertained at home is a wave of the future, and a lot cheaper in the long run. For example, ask about the Captain's Club. Find out how you can watch feature-length, uncut films whenever you want, free. So don't let the economy get you down. Come on in and see me. They don't call me Captain Video for nothing, you know.
The Citizens Committee for Desegregation is unhappy with parts of the proposed public schools desegregation plan and is recommending changes. In resolutions adopted yesterday, the committee condemned proposed clusters for all black elementary and middle schools, and it called for the board to make a broader effort to ensure better education for North Side students whose schools will be untouched by desegregation. The committee also wants the board to liberalize entry requirements for black students going into 7 new proposed magnet schools so that the schools could exceed the 70% black student limits currently in effect. The list of United Auto Workers locals approving a new 3-year pact with International Harvester grew by 3 today. UAW shops in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio were the latest to ratify the contract. Approval of the agreement by all Harvester shops would end the 5.5-month strike by 35,000 employees in 9 states. A North St. Louis man is dead after he was apparently overcome by smoke in a fire at his home. Firemen were called to 2915 Montgomery shortly after noon today and found the body of 76-year-old Clinton Murphy. Authorities say the fire apparently started on a couch in the living room. The fire was contained to that room and was brought under control within 5 minutes. The cause of the blaze has not yet been determined, but arson is not suspected. Fire officials say Murphy was apparently trying to escape through a window when he was overcome by smoke. And, Greg Gazinski, it was not so good in Pittsburgh.
No, it sure wasn't. I'll tell you what, it's pretty hard when you spot the Pirates 5 runs to come back and win, and that's exactly what happened to the Cardinals this afternoon. Pete Vukovich just didn't have it this afternoon as the Pirates beat the Cards 6-3. Pittsburgh did most of the damage early in the game, scoring 5 runs off Vuk in the 2nd inning. Let's go then to the 2nd inning and pick up the highlights. Phil Gardner singles to left, driving Bill Matlock home with the very first run. Bobby Bonds makes a good throw here to the plate, but not in time. And it's Pittsburgh 1, the Cardinals nothing. After a pair of force outs, Tim Foley delivers an RBI single up the middle, making it 2-0. Vuk then made one bad pitch, and he did it to the wrong guy, Big Dave Parker, and he sends one to the upper deck in right field with 2 men on. I'll tell you, he hit it so far, even the cameraman had trouble following it. Look at it. That made it 5-0, and the Redbirds couldn't quite catch up. They got one back in the 5th after Bobby Bonds triples. Jim Lentine singles him home, and it's now 5-1. Following a 50-minute rain delay, Pittsburgh scored their final run. John Milner grounds out to Keith Hernandez at first. Keith also tries to nail Tim Foley at the plate, but he slides in under the tag of Ted Simmons. In the Cards' 8th, with the bases loaded, Hernandez doubles home Tony Scott and Gary Templeton, making it 6-3. Hernandez slides in safe at second base. In the 9th, the Redbirds loaded the bases again against Kent Tekulve, but couldn't score. Hernandez grounding out to end the game, so the Cards and Pirates split their 4-game series. Tomorrow's an off day, and then it's on to Chicago for a 2-game set Tuesday and Wednesday against the Cubs. In the other games, Montreal got by Philadelphia. Greg Lazinski hit his 3rd homer of the year. Chicago beat New York. Cincinnati over Atlanta. George Foster's 2-run homer in the 8th won it. Los Angeles down Houston 4-2, and Frisco topped San Diego. In the American League, Kansas City over Detroit. The Tigers have now lost 7 of 8 since opening day. New York drilled Milwaukee 9-5. Reggie Jackson had a homer. Chicago outslugged Baltimore 9-6. Texas lost to Boston in extra innings. Carl Yastrzemski singled with the bases loaded in the 11th to win it. Toronto beat Cleveland. Oakland beat California 6-1 in the first of 2. They're winning the second one 8-1. That's now in the 5th. And Minnesota edged Seattle 4-3. Okay, now to the National Hockey League playoffs. 3 games were scheduled this evening. The Rangers defeated Philadelphia 4-2. The Flyers still lead the series 3-1. Chicago beating Buffalo 2-1 in the 3rd. We have a final on the last game. Montreal has defeated Minnesota 5-1, so that series is all tied at 2 games apiece. Tom Watson was penalized 2 strokes today for giving some advice to Lee Trevino, but he still managed to win the Tournament of Champions by 3 strokes. Watson shot a final round 71 for a 4-day total of 276 to beat Jim Colbert by 3 strokes. This is Tom finishing on the 18th, and there's his wife Linda. Now, everyone thought Watson had won by 5 strokes. At least that's what was posted on the scoreboard. PGA officials did not announce the 2-stroke penalty until 20 minutes after the tournament was over. For the win, Watson earned $54 grand. He has now won more than $200,000 on the tour in 1980. In the Ladies Citrus Open from Orlando, Florida, Donna Horton-White won her first LPGA tournament with a 1-stroke victory over Janie Blaylock. The Boston Celtics have evened their Eastern Conference Final Series with the Philadelphia 76ers. This afternoon, the Celtics, led by rookie Larry Bird, beat the Sixers 96-90. Bird led all scorers with 31 points. In the other game today, Seattle won their series over Milwaukee 98-94. This is Lonnie Shelton making it 90-88 Sonics. Gus Williams from the outside, Seattle up by 4. Marcus Johnson cut it to 2 on this drive. Then DJ, Dennis Johnson, hits from the outside, 94-90 Seattle. Late in the game, Dave Myers had a chance to tie, but he laid it up short. Can you believe it? And Seattle wins to move on to the Western Conference Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers. So here are the scores. Seattle wins it 4-3. They now take on the Lakers. Boston and Philadelphia are all tied at 1 game apiece. Their series shifts to the Spectrum in Philadelphia on Wednesday. Okay, Don, a lot happening in sports, so that'll do it.
Oh, thank you very much, Greg. One of the militant voices for human rights during the stormy 1960s and 70s was poetess Nikki Giovanni. Tonight she was the guest speaker at the United Negro College fundraiser at the Airport Marriott Hotel. Ms. Giovanni is critical of the educational system in this country, especially public education, which she says has been abandoned because it is now predominantly black.
That there is no such thing as a classroom containing 20 children or more. It is no longer a classroom. It is any number of things. It is a prison. It is a holding action. But we know that in order to teach youngsters, you have to have between 10 and 15. But again, because of racism in this nation, and because our public schools are predominated by black youngsters, all of a sudden we don't mind having 30, 40 kids in school. How can you teach like that? That's impossible. I do not see how this nation, which calls itself a democracy, which is in fact a republic, can continue with the ignorance that we're perpetuating among our young people.
But the diminutive Miss Giovanni says she remains encouraged by the human spirit.
Our strength is the fact that it is not about the pain or the pleasure of any one person. It is about how we move forward as a group. And that's black and white, Jew and Gentile, Catholic and Protestant, male and female. That is us.
Miss Giovanni has written thousands of poems and articles, but may be best known for a record album of poems called Truth is on the Way. Well, if you think you've been to a bad movie lately, you haven't seen anything. But Hughes Rudd has, and he'll tell you about it in a minute. Stay with us.
Federal Express will come and pick up the stuff on your desk and deliver it clear across the country to somebody else's desk overnight for as little as $17.
Hey, why so happy?
Fashion Gal's having a sale. Gotta hurry, tell everyone.
That's Fashion Gal's price break?
Right.
1 week only. Swimwear from Speedo and Beach Party. Now $8. Values to $26. 1 week only. Entire stock of workwear and denim jeans from Britannia, Levi's, Landlubber, and others. 20% off our everyday low price. Values to $37. 1 week only. Levi's bend-over pants. Now $17. Values to $24.
Price break for many great values this week at all St. Louis Fashion Gal stores.
Right.
We bought a high-mileage Mercury.
And we're proud of it.
If you think only imports give you high gas mileage, think again. These Mercury Zephyr cars and wagons get about the same mileage ratings as Toyota Corona, yet Zephyr has more room inside for your family and is sticker priced over $300 less. Zephyr, it's a high-mileage car built in America from Lincoln Mercury. Now that's something to be proud of.
We're your Lincoln Mercury dealers. Our pride is shining.
Today, let West Bend lend you a hand.
Each day is a challenge, there's so much to do, but somehow you always come shining through.
So keep reaching farther, be all that you can. At West Bend, we're here to lend you a hand.
This West Bend slow cooker with its griddle base lets you cook like you've been home all day.
Come on, let West Bend lend you a hand.
You might remember that last weekend we told you about a festival for the worst movies in the world. Well, tonight, Hughes Rudd is here with the results.
Hooray for Hollywood, that's gooey ballyhooly Hollywood.
Well, how does a film make it in this class? The promoters have their own dreadful standards.
A film has to have bad scripting, the directing has to be awful, the sets and the special effects have to be really grim and dire acting.
You may be homely in your neighborhood.
Hollywood has always found it easy to make absolutely awful pictures, but sometimes circumstances intervene to make them even worse than planned. In this Dracula-type number, the star, Bela Lugosi, died on the second day of shooting, and the producer hired his chiropractor to take Lugosi's place. The chiropractor was a foot taller and didn't look like Lugosi, but what the hell, they came in under budget. Strange creatures from outer space are almost guaranteed to make bum movies, especially if your special effects man has suffered brain damage. In this one, the burning spacecraft was created by dousing a paper plate with gasoline and then setting it afire. And the dialogue.
With the ship and the ray gun gone, they have no control. We gotta hand it to them, though. They're far ahead of us.
Apparently, the special effects man was also the writer. In The Robot Monster, the director says things turned out the way they did because the fellow playing the monster owned his own gorilla suit and was willing to work for $40 a day. The Japanese are responsible for a flood of movies about giant bugs, including this one involving a moth made out of cardboard. As a rather small people, the Japanese may get more of a tickle out of stuff like this than we do. But look at the attack of the giant killer tomatoes.
Attack of the killer tomato.
Join Mason Dixon in a race against time as he battles to save the world from the threat of nature's perfect eating machine, the killer tomato.
It was made as a spoof, but it still has some audiences on the edges of their seats. Hughes Rudd, ABC News, New York.
What bothers me about that is I paid to see some of those. That's the news this Sunday night. We thank you for joining us, and we'll be looking for you next weekend. Till then, have a good week.
At Marshall's, you'll like our point of view.
like these first quality Famous Maker sports shirts, sold past season in department stores at $18. Marshall's price $4.99. 100% cotton in a variety of fashion styles and solid colors. Cotton sports shirts just $4.99. Another example of the quality, selection, and savings you'll find every day at Marshall's.
He's feeling fresh. I'm feeling fresh. I've got that fresh feeling.
It's my fresh everyday old heart bread.
I'm feeling fresh.
She's feeling fresh.
I've got a fresh feeling. It's my fresh everyday old heart bread.
It's my fresh everyday old heart bread.
Been putting up fence posts all day long. Hanson finally gets here, and all he's got is light beer. Ever taste light beer?
This is Coors Light.
The surprising taste of Coors Light comes from pure Rocky Mountain spring water and high country barley.
Not bad. Good. Really good.
And a way of brewing that squeezes a lot of the calories out but leaves all the taste in.
Hanson, I am surprised.
Coors Light, the surprise is how good it tastes.
Stories of the unknown or unusual tomorrow at 7.